Started, yeah. Yeah, you're live.
Now we're starting. Okay, this is Dr. Clare speaking from Dr. Clare's dispensary and apothecary in Galway in the west of Ireland. And you're very welcome tonight. Allergy. The reason for talking about allergies this time of the year is, and especially just before Easter, is because now is the time to start using the herbal remedies in order to have a much easier summer. Isn't it a shame when you've got hay fever, especially when you live in a climate like Ireland, where it's wet all winter and cold, and then the sun shines and you're miserable with all of the symptoms of hay fever. I'll mention just a few of them because anybody who's watching this is most likely to be suffering, and you know exactly what your symptoms are. So sneezing, runny nose, runny eyes, and sore throat sometimes. So mostly affecting all that are accessible to outside pollen. In pollen that for people who are sensitive to, that's the best summary that there is of hay fever. The reason why it's important to start about a month before the hay fever season starts, and that's generally around Easter. And the reason for doing that is that you have two kinds of immune system. One is the innate immune system that you're born with, that everybody has, and it's the barriers. It's the barriers to viruses, bacteria, it's the viruses that assault your mucous membranes. And what happens for people with hay fever is one is the immune system needs modulating, and the second is that these barriers need strengthening. And there's no point in waiting until you're up to here with the symptoms. What you want to do is strengthen all of the barriers to the mucous membranes. Some of the things to do with that are toning, okay, astringency. It's about tightening the mucous membranes so that the pollens don't have access into the interior of the immune system. If you want to imagine what that is, it's if you take black tea and you can feel a sucking, drying sensation just inside your cheeks. And that's called astringency. And that's what you want to do, tighten and tone all the cells lining the mucous membrane. And the second thing that you want to do is you want to nourish all the mucus producing cells. So there are several herbs that do that. So it's not, there's no magic or mystery for a lot of the actions of the herbs for allergies. And at this time of the year, this is particularly the hay fever season. But these herbs are also effective for asthma and eczema and any of the other common allergic conditions. Urticaria would be another common one seen in general practice or herbal practice. So there are there are herbs that are very beneficial. For most of the time, they're in equal amounts. I'm just looking at these. Yes, these are all in equal amounts. And you can use any of these herbs independently, or because I know that most of you aren't herbalists, I've actually blended them for you as a food supplement. And the herbs are in Allertone, which is contains bladderwrack, nettle leaf, dandelion root, chamomile, cornflower, elderflowers, and eyebright. And these are put together as a tincture, okay? And the other one we have is a tea. I should maybe have talked about the tea first. And it's called React. So this is the Allertone. We've just done the ingredients of those. And the React tea. Give us 2 seconds, guys. I have two wonderful assistants here who are helping. No, React tea bags. Okay, while we're waiting for that, there's two ways we put the teas together. Loose herb, and this is it here. This is the same blend of herbs as in 3 teaspoon sachets, which are the equivalent of, each sachet is the equivalent of 3 teaspoons. And these are the bags. And we have somebody here who sits at a desk and puts 3 teaspoons of tea into each of the tea sachets, and then we seal them, and then we put them in boxes or tea pouches. So these are very helpful for between Easter and the onset of the hay fever symptoms. That's why I should have mentioned the tea bags first. So the tea bags contain plantago, This is also called ribwort. This is a national treasure in this part of the world. And in fact, it's been exported all over the world. It's called white man's footprint because it has been exported globally. We've exported worse things than ribwort, let me tell you. So ribwort is cooling and restorative to the mucous membranes. Chamomile is an anti-allergy. It's also very good for digestion. Anybody who has problems with the mucous membranes lining their eyes, nose, throat, and then into their lungs with the asthma, also has problems, unless they're very unusual, with the mucous membranes lining their digestive system. So a good side effect of all of this is that the mucous membranes all through the digestive tract also has a tonic and astringency. So the chamomile is very good for that. It's also very good for calming the mind. So the gut-brain connection, which is a very strong association, mainly mediated by the vagus nerve, is calmed by the chamomile. Elderflower is a very anti-allergy herb, specifically for the mucous membranes. It's also a muscle relaxant for really, really tense muscles. So it's a nice little side effect. I love the side effects of the herbs. They're often very helpful. The next herb is nettle, and nettle is, they actually have a very determined mechanism of action for this, which is via histamine stability and mast cell and anti-inflammatory actions. So I'll come back to the nettle. And marigold is healing, soothing, antifungal. A lot of allergies have an underlying fungal element, and healing and soothing. So that's very nice, antimicrobial. So we have some marigold tea here. Oh, here we go, marigold tea and nettle tea. Yeah, okay. There we go, wait for the visuals to catch up with us. So from the 4 to 6 weeks before your hay fever season starts, whatever it starts for you, this is very individualized, you start using the React tea, or you can get any of these herbs, go and pick your own nettles, grow your own chamomile, get all of these individually and use them in combination. Herbs work much better in a blend. It's like you wouldn't make soup from just onions. You wouldn't make soup from just carrots. So it's much more usual and how we've evolved over millions of years to have things in blends. Oh, bless you. So the blends, any combination of those. There are other ones as well. I wish there was another 10 herbs I could put in here. Dandelion root would be very nice. Rose petals would be very nice. There's lots of other herbs that would be good. This isn't an exclusive. I don't think I'm very clever putting these together. Whether you go to Croatia, Poland, anywhere in Northern Europe where they know how to use blends of herbs, you'll find a very, very similar blend that would be very nice. So the cleverness of all of this is actually in the herbs themselves. Then if you do this for the month before the usual onset of your hay fever symptoms, I would expect that the onset would be the symptoms throughout even the first summer season would be a lot more muted, is probably the best word, and calmer. And then you keep taking the React tea all the way through, and then you can use depending on how severe the symptoms are, you can use the Allertone, which is the bladderwrack, nettle leaf, dandelion root, chamomile, cornflower, elderflowers, and eyebright. You use those in a tonic, either as needed. So it might be just when you go home to the country for the weekend. It might be when you're particularly stressed. It might be when the pollen is, listen to the pollen count and you go, oh, I'm going to be in trouble today. If it's very severe and you're missing work or deadlines or not able to function well, then I would take the tea and the tincture, both of them, continuously through the hay fever season. The good news is that if you do these and any blend of this combination or your own combination, if you do this over several years, it's very, very likely that your hay fever will gradually reduce incrementally with each season. So things that are very useful when we're not particularly thinking of herbs is, you know, the wraparound sunglasses that cyclists wear or other sports people, so that the cover is very close to the eyes and therefore acts as a barrier. That is very helpful for eye symptoms. And if you have chamomile balm or even Vaseline or white soft paraffin, I like the marigold balm because it's all natural ingredients, and the marigold is antibacterial, antifungal, and soothing and healing. But even Vaseline is fine. Put a little bit on the tip of your finger and put it all the way around and just slightly inside your nostril. And again, you mightn't have thought about it, but that's a very good way of trapping the pollen before it actually hits your innate immune barrier cells. Okay. So what happens when you get hay fever? It's an immune reactivity where you are sensitized to some of the allergens usually in pollen, but some people it's dogs, cats, trees, you know, so it's a very individual thing. And if you imagine that my cheeks are either side of a cell and my fists are and other cells on either side. So what happens when you're prone to hay fever or other allergy symptoms is that the cell membrane becomes easily ruptured. So it's like and that's because of inflammatory stuff going on. And when the cells burst, what they're releasing is histamine. And the cells that are mostly affected are called mast cells. So what the other things that the herbs do is they stabilize and nourish the cell membranes, even of the internal, the adaptogenic, not adaptogenic, the adaptogen is a herbal term. Anyway, the part of the immune system that learns from its exposures. Okay, so things like becoming immune to mumps after you've had mumps, or so the immune system that learns how to react. Same goes with a lot of the childhood illnesses. So the herbs are very good for both aspects of the immune system. And there's the practical things. So we're welcome to any questions, anybody. If you want to ask any questions. Tara, do you have any questions for me? Tara's organised all this for me.
And an intolerance.
The difference between allergy. Well, hay fever is definitely an allergy because it involves the IgE immune system and it's an immediate reaction. The pollen goes up, your hay fever goes up. Or whatever it is that you're reacting to. It's a very immediate effect. Food intolerances they don't involve that same direct immune system. And therefore it's not an immediate reaction. So in other words, you could have wheat 3 or 4 days in a row, and it takes 3 or 4 days after you've been exposed to kind of get a reaction, which is much more vague, right? Hay fever, you see all the mucus, the watery eyes, the congestion, whereas with food intolerances, it's much more upset digestion, bloated, distension, fatigue, much more generalized symptoms. Right? This is Tara's area of expertise. So do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's all good.
Okay, so it involves a different part, yeah, but it's something that's quite confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have 2 technical assistants here. Do you have any questions?
Not from my side.
No. Okay. So do we have any questions here?
Yeah, there's a question on Facebook. If you can read that one.
This one.
Yeah.
Be good for dust. All of the same things are good for dust allergies. It's the same process, the same effect. I was just particularly wanted to do this at this time of the year because of the hay fever. But all of these herbs are very good for dust allergies, dog, cat allergies, asthma, eczema. They all work on the same basic principle of needing modulation The other herb that's very useful is echinacea. So if you're having a massive flare-up, taking echinacea 5 mils twice a day at the height of it would also be very good. And if you wanted to take 10 or 15 drops every day, that would be fine as well. Okay, so that would be there. They would all be, that would be an immune modulator. Yeah, any more questions?
So you mentioned there that you advise people to start taking their herbs about 3 or 4 weeks before their season starts. So say they haven't done that, do the herbs still work as well?
Yeah, but you'll just know for next year. Well, the reason for suggesting the tea is we're very practical here. The tea is less expensive than the Allertone. So what we want you to do is to use the tea, and the tea is available as a loose tea bag, tea mix, and you can make your own. You put 3 teaspoons into the cafetiere or the teapot, and let them soak overnight. I like good value for money. So what you want to do is give them a good long time to soak so that they get as much goodness out of it as possible. You can drink herb teas hot or cold, and you can use them instead of your water. Because you're taking herb teas doesn't mean you have to give up your berries tea or your lion's tea or black tea of any kind. And for convenience, we've done it in the 3 teaspoon tea bags. Do we have those, guys? Yeah, the 3 teaspoon tea sachets are for compliance, right? None of us like emptying tea leaves and picking them out of the sink and putting them in the bin or whatever. So the tea sachets just mean that all of that is done for you. If you see, they're a big sachet in there. Okay, so although there's 14 tea sachets, it's the equivalent of 42 tea bags. So, and sometimes people get a pack of both, and if they're at home and it's easy, they'll use the less expensive loose tea in their cafetiere, and then they're going away for the weekend and they take the tea sachets with them, or if they know they're going to be too busy or whatever. And you put it in your water bottle and you just drink it throughout the day. You don't drink the teas all in one go in the morning. That's a bit like eating all of your food for breakfast, right? And then fasting until the next breakfast. So what you want to do is keep the immune system and the toning and the nourishing. You drink it, a couple of hours later you drink some more, a couple of hours later you drink some more, and you just drink it the other thing is that it encourages hydration, because it's a reminder to people to drink a little bit more. But you can make it in a pint of water or a litre of water. It depends on whether you want to use, take it in, 3 small cups 3 times a day. I would advise people, if they're using the loose tea, to make it once in a teapot, right, or a cafetiere, because doing loose tea 3 times a day, I think most people would find very off-putting. Sleep is very important. In general for the immune system, and the foods that are very important are the essential fatty acids. And can we put up a list of the essential fatty acids?
Yeah, if anybody wants.
If anybody wants it, yeah. In brief, it's oily fish 2 to 3 times a week, nuts and seeds 2 to 3 teaspoons a day, and avocados 1 to 2 per week. Okay. If you don't have that, you don't have the basic building blocks for your immune system. Yeah. Okay.
So what would be your top 3 tips then for somebody heading into the hay fever season, or any?
Take the tea, get the sunglasses. If it's mainly your eyes that's affected, sleep and good food. Yeah. As always, sugar is not your friend. So any sugar will add to inflammatory reactions of all kinds, whether it's arthritis or allergies or whatever. Sugar is, I would say it's wicked, the amount of sugar that's takes up massive amounts of shelf space in grocery stores. But there you go. That's our choice.
So if somebody comes along in their garden, and we've got all the young nettles coming up now, so they can just
thanks, Tara. Yeah, you pick the nettles and you use them exactly the same way that you would a spinach. So you can just steam them. I put them in anytime I saute onions. I use them for omelettes, curries, any kind of stir fries, and it's just brilliant, and it's free. So yeah, So they're very good. And the elderflowers, when they come on, they're usually a little bit too late, but still very worth picking and putting fresh in your along with your tea, and also drying for next season. It's a little bit too late because they come out in May. Brilliant for using during the hay fever season, but usually not available for the preventing bit beforehand. Yeah. Yep, that's it. But thanks everybody for watching. Yeah.